Okay, good morning, Altaloma Braves. What are we doing today? Today we are going to be solving literal equations. Now, during this video that I've made for you, feel free to pause it as you're taking notes so you can catch up, okay? But you should definitely be taking notes. The first thing I'm going to tell you is, what's a literal equation? So, what's a literal equation? Well, I paused it and started over again so you could see it. Here it is. Literal equation is an equation with more than one variable. And I want you to think formula. All formulas are literal equations. And in higher mathematics like physics and chemistry and different things like that, you will have to deal with a lot of formulas. And so that's what we're getting into right now so that you are successful in the future. Go ahead and pause this and write that down, and let me explain some things for you. One of the most important things you need to understand with literal equations is what do the directions mean? And the directions most of the time are going to say solve for something. What does it mean when it says solve for something? What that means is to get that something by itself or isolated, right? So what if the direction said solve for x? All right, what will that mean? To get x by itself isolated, which, by the way, is what we've been doing. We've been solving equations for x or n or r or s, whatever it is. We've had to get those letters by themselves. We've had to isolate them. So that's what we're doing, but now we're not just going to be dealing with numbers, we're also going to be doing this with letters. And that's where it gets a little bit more complicated. Good news though, all this stuff we've been doing is related. We have to use negative numbers. We have to use our opposites, like addition cancels out subtraction, multiplication cancels out division. All of this is just building on itself, all right? So you'll see a lot of very familiar themes throughout this. Okay, so this should be a familiar thing here. We've been doing this a number of times so far. It says solve for t, and I give you the d equals r times t. This is a formula that we should be pretty familiar with. Distance equals rate times time. We've done a number of problems like that. But like I said, pay attention to the directions. The directions say solve for. That means, solve for what? Solve for t. That means I need to get t by itself. I need to get this t by itself, which means the r needs to take off. We need to get that dude out of there, all right? And in order to do that, I just want to bring up, I know this is a letter, but what if it wasn't? What if it was like d equals like 4 times t, right? Something like that. And I needed to get the 4 out of there. Wouldn't we just look at this and say, well, this is 4 times t, and what cancels times? Well, division, so you would just divide both sides by 4. And of course, this would cancel out, but wouldn't I have t by itself? And in essence, not in essence, literally, I have solved for t. But then you have to ask yourself, what is d divided by 4? Is d divided by 4 like a million? Or is it r? No, it's not. We don't know what d divided by 4 is. I don't know what that is because I don't know what d is, but I can just write it like I was going to divide it, meaning I'm just going to leave it like that. That would be my answer right here. Now, what I just said is really important. I said I'm going to write it like I was going to divide it, and I'm writing division, d divided by 4. I did that. But now let's look over here. What would that look like in this problem? Well, I need to get t by itself, just like I did here. So the r needs to leave. I need to recognize that this is r times t. How do you undo times? Well, it's the exact same as this. I need to divide by that r like this. And what is r divided by r? Well, r divided by r, of course, is just 1. Anything divided by itself is 1. That's just math. And did I get t by itself? Yes. Have I solved for t? I did. But we run into the same problem that we did over here. What is d divided by r? Well, I don't know. Those are variables. I don't know what d is. I don't know what r is. But can I write it like I was going to divide it? Yes, I can. And so what is d divided by r? It is simply d divided by r. And boom, I've done the problem. It asked me to solve for t, and I did. I got t by itself. This is very useful in classes like physics and in chemistry, higher level mathematics, and actually next week. Next week, you're going to have to be able to do this in order to graph a line. We'll get to that. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but I just want you to understand, you will have to do this next week for a good reason. But this happens in physics a lot because in the original equation, I knew what d equaled. D equaled the rate times the time. Well, what if I wanted to know what the time equaled? Well, I know. Now the time equals the distance divided by the rate. That's how I find the time. So this is very helpful as we get into higher mathematics. Let's do a couple more examples. All right, here is a classic problem. Let's read the directions. The directions say solve for h. You should remember that the words solve for mean get by itself. I need h by itself. And this is a classic equation. Think about that. Does anybody know that equation? This is a formula. And it's a literal equation because it has more than one letter. I gave you a second to think about it. This is the area formula for a triangle. Area equals 1/2 base times height. You have probably done that before where you put numbers in there. But in this case, we're not doing that. It says solve for h, and that means I need h all by itself. Well, if I need the h by itself, what needs to leave? Well, the 1/2 needs to leave. That has to get out of there for sure. This has to get over there. And the b also needs to get over there. Those are the two things that have to leave in order to get a by itself. Can I draw the line down the middle? Of course I can. There's no problem like that, right? But let's just decide, what do you want to do first? Well, it doesn't matter really in the end, but I'm going to get rid of this 1/2. And you might remember I've said, how do you get rid of a fraction? You multiply by the reciprocal. It's when I just turn it over, but whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. So this 1/2 times the 2/1, this cancels out. But what is 2 times a? Well, remember, this would be over 1 like this. What's 2 times a? Well, I don't know, but I can write it like I'm going to say it. It's just 2a. 1 times 1 is 1. Remember, we multiply straight across when we do fractions. So I could put a 1 under there, but since that 1 doesn't change anything, I'm going to get rid of it. And now what do I have left over here? Do I have the h by itself yet? Well, all I got rid of was the 1/2. Apparently, I still have the b there. Okay, so have I solved for h yet? I haven't. And I need to get this b out of there. Well, what's happening? Well, let's use our eyes. This is b times h. What undoes or cancels out multiplication? Of course, it's division. So we divide by b on both sides. This cancels. Now, how does that help me? Well, look, yay, I got h by itself. I solved for h because we rock, right? Awesome. But what do we do with this? What is 2 times a divided by b? Well, I don't know. I don't know what 2 times a, I don't know what a is. I don't know what b is. But can I write it like I was going to do all of that? Yes. It's 2 times a divided by b. This is my answer. I just rearranged this very common and famous formula to look differently. This literal equation said the area equals 1/2 times the base times the height. But we said, what's the height equal to? Well, the height equals 2 times the area, everything divided by the base. So here we go. This is a great literal equation. I have one more for you. All right, last one here. It says solve for x. What are we supposed to be getting by itself? X. What do I have? Here's the equation. And you know, it can be complete nonsense. It doesn't even matter, although this one is not. This is actually an equation you're going to be very familiar with next week when we start graphing these. But what if it says solve for x? I need the x all by itself. This has to be by itself. Now it has a y over here and it's got a 2 and a 3. So what do we need to do? Well, if I'm going to solve for x, then isn't it true the 2 needs to leave and this 3 also needs to leave? Both of these things have to be over here. to get x by itself. What do I do first? Well, let's figure this out. This is multiplication. And of course, that means I have to do some division, right? So there's that. This is a minus 3. And of course, I have to do some addition to cancel that out because I'm doing the same thing. I'm just doing opposites, right? And in SADMEP, of course, that means I would have to do addition first, then division. So let's just do that. Let's add 3 here and add 3 here. Negative 3 plus 3 goes away. Now, what is y plus 3? Well, that's an interesting question because I don't know. I don't know what y is. I know the 3, but what's y plus 3? I don't know. Can I just write it like I was going to add it though? I can. Can't I just say, well, y plus 3 equals y plus 3, and I have 2 times x. See, since I don't know what it is, I can't actually do it. I can't do the addition, but I can write it like I was going to add it. By the way, special alert, 3 plus y that does not equal 3y. So be aware of that. 3y, that's 3 times y. That is not the same as y plus 3. So this is different than that. But back to my problem, I need to get x by itself. I still need to get x by itself. The 2 needs to leave. How do I get rid of a 2? Well, that's times. And what's the opposite? Division. This goes away. And look, awesome, I have done it. It said to solve for x, and I did. X equals, because remember, solving means to get x by itself. Now, what's this going to be? What is y plus 3 divided by 2? Well, once again, and this is what you need to get used to, I don't know what y plus 3 divided by 2 is, but I do know that I can just write it like I was going to do all those things. What's y plus 3 divided by 2? It's simply y plus 3 divided by 2. I don't know, but I'm going to write it at least so that I can figure it out. And look, I solved for x. So I took this equation here, this green one, and I rearranged it and made it look like that. That is an extremely useful thing to do in mathematics and physics and chemistry, and you will be doing this kind of thing frequently in advanced math. So there we go. We're going to be doing this tomorrow. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a good evening.